Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Today, we'll be looking at a very interesting topic, and we have captioned it Expatriate Management and Recruitment. Expatriate Management and Recruitment. Today, we have a seasoned facilitator, someone who is passionate about sharing knowledge, about ensuring other people also build capacity in the different dimensions of the HR space. Our facilitator for tonight is Matthew Edibe, and I will just introduce him briefly. All right, Matthew Edibe is a human resource practitioner. Okay, just a minute. Is a human resource practitioner. Just a minute, I'm trying to admit people. All right. Matthew Edibe is a passionate human resource practitioner with a strong background in consulting and outsourcing. Also, he has intense, high-quality experience and exposure to other sectors like manufacturing, construction, factory operations, and FMCG, fast-moving consumer group business. His major interest is not limited to just human capital advisory, but also business leadership, people management and culture, consulting, recruiting, compensation and benefits, learning and development, business development, and data analytics. Matthew Edibe holds a mini MBA from the Techidia Institute. He also has a master's in business administration from Lagos State University, a master's in business administration from Ahmadu Bello University, and he has a first degree in business administration from the Tansan University. At the moment, he is an HR advisor with the financial institution, with a financial institution training center, FITC, here in Lagos. It's with pleasure, gladness, and excitement that I would like to invite to the virtual lectern my brother, my friend, and my colleague, Matthew Edibe. You now have the floor, sir.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Oluyemi Adeosun. I so much appreciate this opportunity to share a bit of knowledge concerning the topic, expatriate management and recruitment. To my lovely and learned viewers, good evening from Nigeria, good afternoon, and good morning from every part of the world you are watching and listening from. Thank you so much for taking our time to come while we learn together in this short period. Now, today's conversation is going to be as simple as it can. I have restricted this discussion and conversation within the scope of my experience in the past couple of years managing expatriate, and also with privilege to have recruited expatriate for 3 different organizations where I had the privilege to work as head of human resources. And I must tell you, there is no rocket science to when it comes to recruiting expatriates and when it comes to managing them. Every of these processes are stipulated under the regulatory arms of the Nigeria Immigration Service. So the Nigeria Immigration Service strictly has the entire affairs for expatriate management. So whatever we discuss here is based on my experiences working directly with expatriates and also my direct relationship with the Nigeria Immigration Services. And so the learning objective today is we'll have opportunity to really understand who are expatriates, understanding who an expatriate is. So you may see somebody walking in the street of Lagos, Abuja, Calabar, Akwa Ibom, or any part of Nigeria, but you need to be sure if this person actually is an expatriate. And then we'll also look at how they can be recruited into Nigeria. We have the Nigeria Immigration Service has designed a strict pattern as to how these individuals can be recruited to Nigeria. And then the most important part of it is managing them as soon as they become licensed to work in our beloved country, Nigeria. So we'll look at something together, and I want us to flow along. Who is an expatriate in Nigeria? And then we'll look at, a writer said, employment expatriate usually takes place where a foreigner, usually is a migrant worker in his profession, takes position outside his home country, either independently or as a work assignment scheduled by the employer, which may be a company, government, or non-governmental organization. So any individual who is skilled in his own profession, that is very, very good in that role, and probably that fits in, we don't have it within our country, and you're bringing that person outside Nigeria, that person is an expat. Now, this individual can be, this person can come to work in the company here in Nigeria and can also work with the government. So it's not necessarily that this person is going to work in the private sector. He or she can be employed into the country to work in the government sector as well, in the public sector. So we also have another that says an expatriate is a migrant worker who is a professional or skilled worker in their profession. So the worker takes a position outside of their home country, either, like the other elder said, writer said, either independently or as a work assignment scheduled by the employer, which can be a company, university, government, or non-governmental organization. Now, it is important we understand that usually in the large context, we used to see expatriates to be individuals who comes to work in company, industries, banks in Nigeria. But you also need to understand that we have expatriates working in the public sector. We have expatriates working in Nigeria, the NNPC. We have expatriates working there. And I'm sure some of us are aware about the new government that's been put in place by the Abia State, newly the governor-elect. He's already working on bringing an expatriate to be in his cabinet for purpose of education. Then look at it lastly, we say, what is expatriate? Say expatriate is a term used to describe an employee who is temporarily or permanently assigned to work in a foreign country. Expatriates may be assigned to work in a foreign country by their company or may be sent to work in a foreign country by their government. So for us in Nigeria, we'll find out that most of the constructions that are being done in Nigeria and most of the partnership within the federal government and foreign experts, you find that foreign organizations and foreign countries, you find out that they bring in their own specialists to represent their own interests in the country. So these individuals are classified as expatriates. So let's move further. So recruiting an expatriate in Nigeria. So you have to recruit an expatriate before you be able to manage them. So that's why I have to take us back to the basics, how these people are being recruited, and then we'll now look further to see how you have to manage them. The law is statuted that any foreigner seeking employment in Nigeria must get the consent and approval of the Comptroller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service. Similarly, any company in Nigeria seeking to employ foreigner must also seek the consent of the Comptroller General of the Immigration Service. So before an expatriate comes into the country, the office of the Comptroller General is notified, and the Comptroller General must give approval. Now, this approval comes in different processes, as the case may be. It is also important for us to know that for any foreigner that comes into the country to work, he or she must pass through the rudiments and intricacies of recruitment. And unlike our own recruitment for the locals, it's just basically putting up the adverts, individuals sent in resumes, and they are subjected to interview processes and the like. So it is not like that for the expatriate. Because they are experts, it is assumed they know everything within that scope, and it's just for us to carry out the expected documentation. And it is important that also let us know that when it comes to recruiting expatriates, we must be careful as HR practitioners, legal individuals, or consultants. Yeah, mostly in Nigeria, organizations prefer to use consultants, while some organizations prefer to assign the responsibility to the human resources department. So we need to be careful when we are recruiting this individual, because if you don't do it through the right channel and the right process, you could either burn your fingers or even burn the integrity of the organization, which can throw them out of business, or perhaps they will lose their license in working in Nigeria. So now there are major documents, and each of these documents have their purpose when it comes to expatriates. The first one is the expatriate quota. The second one is subject to regularization visa, STR. The fourth one is combined expatriate resident permit and alien card, CERPAC. And then the last one is temporary work permits. Every expatriate must pass through each of these documentation. There are each of these documentations are processes and they are stages. Before an expatriate becomes fully licensed to work in Nigeria, he or she must root through each of these documentation. And it is important that you must know that they cannot be skipped. You cannot skip any of these documents. If you get a consultant that tells you, don't worry, we'll skip it. By the time the Nigerian Immigration Services, through the office of the Assistant Immigration Controller General, aliens, and inspectorate, when they come to your office, they come twice every year, in March and in December. By the time they come and any of these documents is not available, then you will understand the process. You understand the need why you should go through the right channel. So we'll start for the first one. Expatriate quota. First and foremost, the expatriate quota, some consultants call it EQ, some organizations will tell you EQ. If you go to the immigration office, they'll tell you EQ. It is where the legal procedures for hiring a foreign worker in Nigeria get started. Every Nigerian company that wants to hire a foreign worker must first get an expatriate quota from the Nigerian Immigration Service. The Nigerian Immigration Service must, before you even start any discussion that you want to bring an expatriate, this should be your first document in mind. You must have this thought of getting an expatriate quota. And by all means, HR practitioners, HR professionals, please don't put yourself into trouble. Don't put yourself in your organizations into trouble. Walk straight into any Nigerian Immigration Service close to you, anyone close to you. Just go to the office of the Assistant Controller General or Assistant Immigration Controller General in charge of aliens. Just walk up to his office and tell him or her stationed there that this is what you want. Don't speak to anybody outside the offices. Don't say that there is no shortcut to these processes and documents. I know of organizations that has fall because of instances like this. Don't bother yourself. Don't allow anybody tell you that the process is enormous. Don't allow anybody tell you that the process is 10 years, is 5 years. No. Just walk into that office and start the process. The process of documentation alone can speak for you over 10,000 times. It's just like getting driver's license in Nigeria. Once you apply and the temporary paper is given to you with stamp, you and I know that you can use it to drive anywhere in the country until the permanent driver's license, the plastic driver's license is prepared and ready for you. So do not by any reason want to say you want to speak to anybody that will give you to you. Now, the number of expatriates the NIS allots to each company wishing to employ expats in its business in Nigeria is known as the expatriate quota. A company that is employing an expatriate must be incorporated in Nigeria in order for them to work there. Additionally, before conducting business in Nigeria, any company with foreign, so that expatriate quota would tell you that, which is a document that shows the numbers of expatriates that would work in that company. Let's say, for instance, Matthew Edigbe and Sons wants to recruit expatriate in Nigeria. There must be purpose why this expatriate wants to come to work in Matthew Edigbe and Sons. Now, for Matthew Edigbe and Sons, which role will this expatriate fill? that is where the expatriate quota comes in to tell you, okay, I need Jack Robinson to work as head of product procurement. I need Jack Robinson to work head of manufacturing. I need Jack Robinson to manage finance. So this is what the expatriate quota will show, that these individuals will work in this role within this stipulated period of time. And so we shall move that to how you get this document. But let's go further. It says the approval for expatriate quotas in Nigeria is subject to additional procedures that are industry specific. Now, we need to understand that what the manufacturing industry will require is not what the Nigeria Airspace Management will require. What the Nigeria Airspace Management Agency will require will not also be the same with what FIs, financial industries, would require. Each of these regulatory bodies has their own specifications as designed by the Nigeria Immigration Service. Like I said earlier, the best bet is to walk straight to the Nigeria Immigration Service because they are the one licensed by the Federal Ministry of Interiors to handle these affairs. And so the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act 2010, which governs all oil and gas industry, permits operators and project promoters to retain up to 5% of their management position as expatriates, subject to the requirement that they may submit a succession plan to the Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board. And so that is what oil and gas is. Oil and gas is requesting 5% of management position for expatriate. Every other percentage should be for locals. And well, I will also have to agree that most organizations today, this is what they do. And this is what Nigeria Immigration Service wants. Nigeria Immigration Service frowns as any organizations in Nigeria, irrespective of the owner, to have a larger percentage of the management as expats. You must have the locals occupying some major stake in the company. While you have expatriates who are holding management positions, board positions, you must also have people that are understudying them. So that is the area. We'll talk much more on this area at the parts of expatriate management. Now, upon filling the requirement for the grant, okay, so this speaks about other notable organizations. Also, NOGICD Act 3 mandates that all EQ applications be approved by NCDMB before being submitted to Federal Ministry of Interiors. So this submission to the Federal Ministry of Interiors is also speaking to the the Nigeria Immigration Services, because the Federal Ministry of Interior will accept the documentation, and then you will now move further to Immigration Service. Applications for a temporary work permit also fall under this category. Upon filling the requirements for grants for an expatriate quota and the grant thereof, the Nigerian company can then apply to the embassy situated in the resident country of the expatriate for a subject to regulation visa. Now, mind you, whoever you are bringing as an expatriate is coming from a particular country that has an embassy, that must have an embassy in that country. So as soon as you carry out this first documentation, which is the expatriate quota here in Nigeria, and it is approved by the Federal Ministry of Interior, this document is sent back to the embassy of the country where the expatriate is coming from. It is at that embassy that you will now apply for subject to regularization visa. Please, HR practitioners, consultants, and legal professionals, most instances, people skip the subject to regularization visa. Most people skip it. And with sincere apologies to our consultants that are here, they are majorly the reason why these things happen. Because they will tell you that with that quota and the visa, once the expatriate comes, they start working for other documents, and the expatriate starts working. And by the time immigration officers comes into the organizations, trouble comes. And then people start saying our Nigerian immigration people are wicked, they are this and that. It's because somebody somewhere has decided to play a fast one on the Federal Ministry of Interior. I've got an experience about it, and trust me, it wasn't fun, because this expatriate had to go back to that country to apply for subject to registration visa. Okay, so the STR visa is valid for 90 days. This is the visa that is granted to an expatriate pending the regularization status. This visa is just for 90 days for that expatriate to be able to work in Nigeria. Now, it is expected that within these 90 days, either the HR practitioner, the corporate service, the consultant, or the legal person that wants to do each of these documentation starts the processes on time. And then let's look at the requirements for the grant of STR. The first is a passport with at least 6 months validity. At least 6 months validity. And then completed visa form in quadruplet for 4 recent passport photographs. 4 copies of letter of expatriate quota approval from the Ministry of Interior. So I'm sure you are getting it now that each of these documents are so important. So imagine anybody advising an organization to skip each of these and just bring the expatriate. You can imagine the mayhem that would happen, that would be caused. 4 copies of credentials, certificates, and curriculum vitae, all vetted by the relevant officials of Nigeria High Commission / Embassy. English certified translated copy where applicable. So if you are bringing a Russian, if you are bringing a German, if you are bringing a Spanish, if you are bringing a French, each of these documents, you must get it in English certified translated copy for the process of getting the grants for STR. 4 copies of letter of employment that has been issued by the Nigerian company. 4 copies of acceptance of employment signed by the expatriate. Now, I have to speak about this. I have been in a situation where prior before joining the organization anyway, the expatriate came in and it was an oversight from my own side because I didn't even really check very well. There was no copy of acceptance letter of employment by the expatriate. So if you give an expatriate employment, it is not a matter of responding to the email like we do in our country here. Dear hiring manager, this is to confirm recipient of, and this is to say that I'm accepting this offer and will assume this is also the. No, the expatriate must write to the organization with subjects acceptance of employment, accepting the offer of employment, and then signing it with date, and then send back to the organization here in Nigeria. This is the best practice for accepting employment in Nigeria. And then the Nigerian Immigration Service visa payment receipt and visa acknowledgement receipt. You are applying, when you apply for visa, which is online, and then the acknowledgement receipt that the visa has been issued, each of these documents must be sent across for STR to be granted. Now, fellow colleagues, you can see that most organizations that gets involved into the hands of the Nigerian Immigration Service by sanctions is because they have either skipped each of these processes or somebody has advised them. However, I would plead to say that some organizations do not know about this, especially for STR. Most organizations do not know. They just bring the visa, get the expert the visa, bring the expert into Nigeria with the expatriate quota, and the expert starts working. And then by the time expatriate is in Nigerian immigration officers are coming, you see them dodging, and some organizations pay heavily because they don't want to be sanctioned. Moving on is the combined expatriate resident permits and alien card. It is called CERPAC. CERPAC is in form of our driver's license, and it's in the form of voter's card and NIN. The way the card is the same size. It is not bigger than that. It is not wider than that. The same length, the same breadth. That is how CERPAC is. So if somebody comes and gives you CERPAC that is larger than that, please, you have been duped. As of today, the Nigerian Immigration Services through the office of the Nigeria Ministry of Interior have not changed the size of CERPAC. A CERPAC must be obtained by any expatriate who plans to live and work in Nigeria for a period of time longer than 56 days. Having a CERPAC document enables non-Nigerians to live and work. Please, let's understand. CERPAC is you are living in Nigeria and you are working in Nigeria. CERPAC is a work or resident permit required for any foreigner to lawfully reside or work in Nigeria. However, except for missionaries, students from ECOWAS, African nations, and Cameroonian nationals, as well as those with special immigrant status, diplomats, government employees, international NGOs, and Niger wives, all other categories of foreigners are eligible for CERPAC. Please, this cannot be overemphasized. And so, like I said earlier, what most consultants do in Nigeria and what most HR practitioners do, I want to apologize because we are all colleagues and we're in the same field. The mistake that they make is that as soon as they conclude the visa and the expatriate comes into the country, they just go straight to CERPAC. They skip STR, and trust me, this before the 56 days, you may not get it. But it depends on the availability of it, and for issuance individual in the country, trade in the country. These are the documents that are required by the Nigeria, by the Nigerian Immigration Service. Every of these documents are submitted to Nigerian Immigration Service. Okay, thank you so much. Let me share my slide again. Okay, so now the requirements for the issuance of CERPAC. So in applying for CERPAC, application letter from the employer requesting regularization of stay and accepting immigration responsibility on behalf of the expatriate. Now, fellow colleagues, this particular letter is important and I have to tell you something about it. This letter must be signed by the managing director of the organization or the chairman of the organization and the HR practitioner or the HR professional or the head of HR of the organization. This letter must not be signed by one person. If it is signed by only the MD alone, it will come back. As a matter of fact, there is possibility that the immigration services may not see these processes and it gets to Federal Ministry of Interior. By the time it gets to them, they will send everything back and then you start afresh again. The letter must be signed by either the managing director or the chairman of the organization and the human resources. Either of them must be a local. Then the letter of appointment or employment of the expatriate, the letter that was issued to the expatriate will be attached to it. Mind you, it is going to be stating the remuneration of the expatriate. Acceptance of offer of appointment or employment, just the same way you do of that of XTR, that acceptance is needed. Now, Form IMM22 with 3 passport photographs. This Form IMM22 was issued by the Nigeria Immigration Service. It is the Nigeria Immigration Service that issues this form to you. That is why I said when you want to do it, just walk straight to the office of the Assistant Comptroller General in charge of aliens. Just go to, it's only those people that are in charge of aliens that attends to this. Don't go to the office of compliance. Don't go to the office of monitoring. Don't go to the office of inspection. If you go there, definitely, sure, they will have their ways that they can help you, but it's just going to make the processes longer and you pay more. But just go office of alien and they will attend to you. And then you also need to attach the quota approval. That is expatriate or quota approval, the experts. You attach it to the document, and then valid passports with STR visa and copies of relevant pages. Now, you see now that for you to apply for CERPAC in Nigeria, now that you are in Nigeria, the expatriate is in Nigeria, to apply for CERPAC, the Nigerian immigration will ask you for STR. Now, what has happened is in most organizations is that at this point, where Nigerian Immigration Services is requesting for STR, our Nigerian consultants, because at this point in time, what they did, I don't know, I can't really tell this is how they go to do it, but somehow they will just run around and run around and run around, STR comes out, or probably they are able to now start the processes again, which will obviously affect the expatriate because the STR will be coming with a recent date. I don't know if you understand what that. It will come with a recent date, which will of course affect the date of application for CERPAC. So at that point in time, CERPAC is rejected. As soon as CERPAC is now rejected, the organization will now need to start to apply for CERPAC again. In this case, the date of the STR will now be older than the date of the registration for CERPAC. Mind you, you have lost productive time, you have lost money, you've lost so many other things in these processes. So usually I advise, anytime some friends, colleagues come to me, I tell them, please start from the basics. There is nothing that is as good as starting from the basics. If immigration officers come to your office and they ask you, where is your CERPAC and everything, you tell them that this is what we have. STR is there, which is expected to last for 90 days. And you have, they have the quota evidence of registration, which is the first one. And then this is CERPAC. We have already started the processes. They will understand and they are not going to behead you for that, or the organization will not be beheaded. And then that is that for CERPAC. Now, another work permit. A temporary work permit is the permit needed where an expatriate has no intention to work in Nigeria on a long-term basis. A TWP is usually granted for 3 months. It can be extended for an additional 6 months. It is a single entry visa for foreigners who intends to work on a short-term basis. Somebody who wants to work on a short-term basis, colleagues, on a short term. If you are sure this person wants to work on a short term, then you go for temporary work permit. You may not need to bother yourself or stretch yourself for every other long document. But mind you, I don't advise people to go for temporary work permits. The reason is that by the time you do the first 3 months and you are now moving to the additional 6 months, by the time it is obvious that this expatriate will stay longer, it means that you now need that expatriate will go back to his or her country for you to now start the required expected processes for somebody that wants to stay longer. So I usually preferably advise my friends and colleagues in the HR space to go through the right process of documentation. Okay, so the requirements to get TWP, of course, a letter of request or invitation from the company, confirmed airline return ticket. Now, you see why I like I said, I don't usually advise people to go for TWP, because when you are submitting return tickets for these processes, that means what it means is that on the date where the employee is supposed to return back to the country, if the TWP expires, immigration offices will be alerted that there is a foreigner whose TWP has expired and the airline return ticket is due to be used. Between 48 hours, you will find the Nigerian immigration team for compliance. These people in charge in this case are compliance. You will find them in your office. And I hope you know, like every pan Nigeria and the whole world, Nigerian Immigration Service have free entry and exit into any organization that has expatriate. You cannot tell them, you can't tell them no, you can't tell them yes. Once they come, they have to come in. You must allow them in. However, the law stipulates that they only have access for inspection twice in a year, like I earlier said, in the month of March and in the month of December. If they come in the month of March, by all means, if they come again in June or July, don't stop them at the gates. Don't say it is not yet December. Allow them to come in. However, show them the documents that a team has visited us in March and we only expect you again in December. If you decline them from coming in, you are putting the company into trouble. And then further documentation, acceptance of immigration responsibility by the organization, which is going to be written on the company's letterhead, CAC incorporation documents, the company's profile, an application letter to the Comptroller General of Immigration on the requesting company letterhead. It must be on the company, on the requesting company letter. It will answer you. It must be on the company's letterhead. Now that is that for TWP. So like I said, colleagues and consultants, friends, and viewers all over the world, these documents, you cannot skip them for any reason, for the love of the company, for the love of the organization, for the love of the industry, for the love of your job, and especially for the country, Nigeria. Please do not listen to anyone that will tell you to skip any of these processes, because the aftermath of it is usually very bad. Some of us would have seen instances where expatriates are sent out of the organization. They will all ask them to come outside of the gate, and you just see them standing, some of them with their cigarettes, and you just see them. It is because somebody somewhere has bent corners, or somebody somewhere has given them wrong advice. Moving forward. So now, so every of what I have said earlier has to do with recruiting them to the country. Now, the most important part of it, you find that you see that recruiting expatriates is very simple. I tell my friends, I tell colleagues, it's very simple. Just go through the right channel and go through the right documentation. It is very simple. But guess what, friends and viewers? The most tedious part of it is managing them in Nigeria. You need to manage them so well that if you don't manage them, even you as HR practitioner, you may lose your job. You may get your finger burnt, or probably the organization will be put into trouble. So this is why it is important to do this. And just these three simple, like but it is not just simple, my friends. It's not just simple. If you don't do it in the right way, it is not simple. Through the regulatory body, Nigeria, through the federal government agency, Nigeria Ministry of Interior, states that every organization must carry out monthly returns. It is important that monthly returns is carried out by the organization, and it must be submitted on or before 7th, although there is a grace period to 15th of the following month. As soon as you pay salary in April, by May 7th, Nigerian Immigration Service is expecting your monthly returns by May 7th. And by May 15th, if they don't see you, you have put the company, you have first of all put the expatriate in trouble, and then you have put the organization into trouble. Now, what contains the monthly returns? One, first document is copy of the CERPAC. Copy of the CERPAC, a photocopy of the CERPAC. Please, when you're doing the photocopy of the CERPAC, it must be in colored. A written document to the Office of the Comptroller General of Immigration. A written letter to the Office of the Comptroller General of Immigration. The letter is to him. Please, this process is important. The letter that you're writing is very important. So that's I'm going to take my time to explain it. You are writing to the Comptroller General of the Immigration Service. That letter must be in colored and in the company's letterhead. That is one. Then you send a copy of that letter to the Deputy Comptroller General. Now, if you are in Lagos, it is Zone E. That is Lagos, Ogun State, and their Zone E. So you need to check for every part of the country you are, check the zone that you belong to. You will copy the Deputy Comptroller General for that zone. You must give that he or she a copy. Please, that letter must be in colored. So we're talking about 2 letters now, right? There is another letter again that goes to the Assistant Comptroller General of Immigration in charge of aliens. That is 3 letters now. The Deputy Comptroller, Assistant Comptroller, they are all getting copies. The letter is to. Each of these individuals are getting copies. So we have talked about 3 letters now. Then the 4th letter is going to Assistant Comptroller General in charge of compliance. So these are 4 different letters now. First letter is to Comptroller General of Immigration. The second letter is to Deputy Comptroller General of Immigration in charge of your zone. The third letter is Assistant Comptroller General in charge of aliens. And then the 4th one is Assistant Comptroller General in charge of compliance. Then the last letter, which is this is your own. This is going to be this particular one is a copy. Now, the copy you write to, the one you're writing to the Comptroller General is going to, that one you make 2 copies of it. It has to be colored. So that one to the Comptroller General is your own copy. That's the company's own copy, which must be in colored. Now, on that letter, for each of these offices that you are going, you must collect the stamp of receipt on that letter. I'll take it again for the sake of time. 5 different letters will be written by the organization when you want to do your monthly returns. The first one is you are doing 2 copies of letter to the Comptroller General of Immigration. 2 copies must be colored. Another copy, and in that 2 copies at the bottom of the letter, you know how you do CC. The CC is 1 to Deputy Comptroller General, 1 is Deputy Comptroller General of your zone, Assistant Comptroller General in charge of aliens. Another letter is to Assistant Comptroller General in charge of compliance. Lest I forget. Then there is another letter again that goes to the Comptroller General, State Comptroller General in charge of the state. We have a Comptroller General in charge of Lagos State. We have for Ogun State. We have for Benue. We have every other state. So those 5 letters must go out with a copy of yours, which must be in colored. For each of these offices, you must collect the stamp. For that of the Comptroller General, his office is in Abuja, but you collect the stamp in the office of the state controller. That is Lagos State for Lagos State. When you go to the office of Lagos State Controller, go to his office, you'll see the stamp of the Comptroller General to show received. When you go to Zone E, you must collect received. If you are going to aliens office, you must collect the receipt stamp. Compliance office, you must collect receipt stamp. Mind you, learned colleagues and consultants. For that of the office of Deputy Comptroller General, for instance, if you are in Ogun State, the office of the Comptroller Zone E is in Ikeja in Lagos. Don't send it by dispatch. By all means, go to where he or she is. Don't send it by courier. Don't send it by dispatch. You must bring that letter by yourself to that office and take your stamp and then return back to your state. It is important that each of these documentation, these letters gets to these individuals, alongside with the CERPAC, the data page of the expatriate passport photograph, and then the salary schedule of this salary paid to that expatriate for that month. It must contain it. And then if the expatriate, for the male, they call the male, if it is the Asians, they call the male the wife, and they call the female the husband. So I'm sure we know about that. So you must have the husband's data page, passports, and every other document, every of those documents that you use in registering for CERPAC. Each of these documents must be attached and sent to the offices of the Nigerian Immigration. Now, the Nigerian Immigration Service has also made an adjustment that states that every expatriate must have a local that is understanding him or her. Don't forget, every expatriate must have a local that is understanding him or her. It is important. It is an important document that cannot be overemphasized. You cannot overemphasize this document. This document must be available. You must have it available. HR department, you must design it. Okay. Roberto Johnson is the head of manufacturing for Matthew Digbe and Sons. Jide Robinson, who happens to be a local, must understudy what that expatriate is doing. So you must do a schedule to show that each of these persons, these are the people understudying them. Now, not just this schedule also comes with a training plan that shows the numbers of hours Jide Robinson spent with Jack Robinson, who happens to be the expatriate, in learning what he or she is doing in the country, Nigeria. Each of these documents are what are put together and submitted monthly as returns to the Nigeria Immigration Services. Please do not forget it. And then it is important for us to know that expatriates pay tax. Some consultants will tell you they don't pay tax, but I'm not aware of that. As of today, they are entitled to pay tax. The only aspect that the law gives a shy to them, however, stated to them that they can choose voluntarily, is that of pension remittance. They are of will to say, okay, I want to remit pension, and they can say, I don't want. But tax, you cannot escape it. In as much as you earn in Nigeria, you are expected to pay tax. So I'll show us what the Nigerian Immigration speaks about their tax. And then ensure prompt liaising with NIS on regular basis. And so usually what I advise colleagues is, rather than have a consultant, have a friend in the Nigerian Immigration Service, have a friend, preferably somebody from the rank of Assistant Controller General, AIC, preferably from that rank of AIC. Just build a relationship. Let me not say friend, build a relationship so that when issues arises, because guess what, there are some issues that will arise that you may not be able to handle. Yes, there are some issues. There could be workplace disagreement, and probably a unionized organization, and they all down tools and say, no, we want this. So issues like that could come up. Something can just happen. So you just have a relationship with them, and they could just advise you on what to do promptly. And so that speaks about liaising with them. And also, I forgot to talk about this, that you must also know that in managing expatriates, for everything that happens to an expat, the Nigeria Immigration Services has the right to know. For anything that happens to an expatriate, if an expatriate should fall sick, the Human Resources Department must write to the Nigeria Immigration Service. Like I said in my introduction, everything I'm talking about, every of my conversation is based on experience in the past years managing expatriates, my relationship with Nigeria Immigration Service and Nigeria Ministry of Interior. So I know these things very well. If an expatriate falls sick, as you're taking that expatriate to the hospital, you are writing to the Nigerian Immigration Service that we have so person with quota number so and so that currently holds this position and has fallen sick and has been taken to hospital XYZ. Just give it to them. That is their business. It doesn't concern you anymore. You have informed them. It doesn't concern you anymore. If he or she is going for annual leave out of the country, you are expected to write to the Nigerian Immigration Service, so person with quota number so and so, occupying so and so, name so and so is embarking on annual leave dash between so date to so date. This is the flight ticket to, and this is a return ticket. Nigerian Immigration Service has the right to know everything about them. Moving forward. And so this is the tax rate. Now, please, as of today, I don't know what has happened at the period while this conversation is going on. But as at 7:30 p.m. today, this is the tax rate for the Nigeria, for as issued by Nigeria Ministry of Interior to expatriates. As at 7:30 p.m. today, I don't know if it has changed while we're discussing, but as at 7:30 p.m. today, this is the tax rate as follows. So first 300,000, this is Naira equivalent. So Naira equivalent. The first 300,000, 7%. So tax payable is 21,000. So less than 300,000, we have 21,000 Naira. So the next 300,000, that is 300,001 Naira, is 11%. So that's the value for it. And the cumulative tax 54. I'm sure our learned accountants, professionals in the taxation industry will understand each of these. The next 500, 15%. The next 500, 15%. The next 1,600,000. Then over 3.2 million, 24%. So look at these are the accumulative tax income for it. Less than 300,000, 300,001 to 600,000, 600,001 to 1,100,000, 1,100,001 to 1.6 million, 1.6 million and 1 to 3.2 million, and then over 3.2 million is 24%. This has not been changed as at the time we started this conversation. So it is important that you know that this is what you are expected to remit on their behalf. Create tax ID for them, log in to respective inland revenue of respective states. They will give them tax ID because they are in Nigeria, so they should remit their tax in Nigeria. Don't tell anybody that they should take their tax to their country. I'm sure we know it's not here. So you remit your tax here, and this is what the immigration experts wants to see. If they don't see this, then you are putting the company into jeopardy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for the opportunity once again, Mr. Oluyemi. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Thank you, Matthew Edegbe. This has been perhaps one of the best 1 hour ever. You are just, sharing insights and providing information back to back. In other words, we collected it water. Okay, if you have questions quickly or clarifications, please feel free to ask. Don't forget, he's not a staff of Nigerian immigration. He's a civilian like all of us, even though he's very knowledgeable about the area. I'm saying that so that somebody does not ask you a question about why immigration does not do something because you are not their staff, neither are you their spokesman. But I think I saw a comment on the chat box from Victoria. Okay. All right. So before we take the comment, let's quickly take my brother and my friend, my colleague, Mr. Patrick. Patrick, welcome.
Hi, Yemi. Great job you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Wonderful session by the facilitator. It was very informative. I just have one question. Sometimes some expatriates receive a portion of their remuneration in foreign currency, dollars or whatever the case may be. In such a situation where the expatriate is paid a portion of their remuneration in foreign currency, how does that apply to the Nigerian tax remittance table? Thank you.
Matthew, would you like to respond to that? You need to unmute yourself, please. You are currently muted, Matthew.
Okay, if I can get your question, Patrick, you're talking about instances where expatriates earn in another foreign currency, and then in relation to what happens to tax remittance. Am I correct, sir?
Yes. You know, many expatriates are paid twice. There's what they get, like the local pocket money, and what they are paid maybe in dollars to a foreign account. So it's trying to say,
so so now
go on, please.
Okay, so now we must understand one truth. There is no rocket science to how remunerations are being managed when it comes to expatriates. I agree to say that some of them will say, pay me my remuneration in dollar. And then, just like Mr. Oluyemi has said, there are some that you must give them pocket money so that they can be able to buy from local vendors or from shopping malls where they have to spend the Nigerian currency. Mind you, that whatever you have indicated on your monthly remittance as their remuneration, whatever you have stated on your monthly remittance is going to be in Naira. So it means that the dollar equivalent, inclusive with the Naira, sum up together, the Naira value of it is what you are taxing. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Let's take for instance, I worked in an organization where they have domiciliary account with Citibank. I have another organization that I work that has domiciliary account with Standard Chartered Bank. And so they want a portion of their remuneration to be paid into the dollar account, while the other value is paid in cash into their Naira account. You know, they will have a Naira account for pocket money. It is expected that you as the consultant or HR practitioner, the sum total which you are going to state visibly on your monthly remittance is what you tax. If you give me $2,000 into my salary account and you give me 2,000 Naira as pocket money, $2,000 converted to Naira plus 2,000 Naira that you are giving to me as pocket money, sum together, that is what you are taxing. You tax that value and pay to inland revenue of either of the states you are into.
Thank you. If you like to ask a question, please raise your hands and we will recognize you. Again, Matthew, there are some questions in the chat box. Someone here says, I am confused. I have never provided a ticket, either return or one way before to process TWP. I provided all other documents except tickets and get the TWP in few days. I also have never gotten a visit in 4 years of working with my company and managing Expatriate. Is there something wrong somewhere? Do you want to react to that?
Okay, Victoria Bimbola. So I got your question in the chat box. Now, when it comes to TWP, there's no two way about it. If you're missing the company needs TWP for just 3 months, Ministry of Interior has governed it to be for 3 months, and there's possibility of renewal for 6 months. So if you have said you want to apply for TWP, it means that you must by all means, you must attach that return ticket to state that as soon as this person finishes this assignment, he or she is going back to Germany, he or she is going back to America. So if I may ask, Victoria, were you the one that processed this TWP, or it was done by a consultant? If it was done by you, by yourself, there is no way you will not do it because you must attach a TWP. You must attach a return ticket. For the TWP, I did TWP for a Netherlands, indigene. I did TWP for a German. I did TWP. I also did TWP for an Indian. My document was not accepted without return ticket. So if it was done by a consultant, consultants has been able to find his way around it. And also, you said I have also never gotten a visit before in my 4 years of working with my company and managing expatriates. So there, Victoria, I must beg you, it means that something is not working well somewhere. One thing fully is involved, and that thing is that your organization has a consultant outside that is serving as a bridge between your organization and the Nigeria Immigration Service. There is somebody is there. I can say this for free. The Nigeria Immigration Service must visit every organization that has expatriates working with them twice in a year. The first letter that will come to you is a letter for inspection. The inspection directorate will send you a letter telling you that they will be coming to pay you a visit. What that means is that
Hello, Matthew, are you still there?
expecting them to come. And then the final one is when they will eventually come. Sometimes they may not even tell you they are coming. They will just patch into your office. And like I said earlier, if they have not been coming, then I can tell you this for free, that somebody is serving as a bridge between your organization and the Nigeria Immigration Services. Thank you. And please, just like as Tabitha has said, I apologize if I don't pronounce your name. Victoria, I pray they don't remember you. Please, the honest truth is, make sure you check all of the documents you have. I'm sure you keep a file for immigration. It's expected that you keep a file, because when they come, they will ask you, give us your immigration file. That's what you hand over to them. They don't ask you another than an immigration file. Then they will go through it. Make sure you go through the slide. You can speak to Mr. Oluyemi. He will share you the slide. Make sure you have every of these documents. If you have a consultant, I am sure you have a consultant. Tell your consultant to give you this document. You want to have them in your file, so that the day your consultant have issues with them, they not choose to come, you will be ready to receive them.
Okay, we have 2 people who would like to ask questions. We'll start with Olushola Oyeniro. Olushola Oyeniro, please. Taiwo, Tayo, please be on standby.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
And good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for this section. So my question is, for foreigners that come into Nigeria to establish, to find their own firm and start up their own company, are we going to categorize them as expatriate also? That's one. And then 2, such companies, if they decide to bring in, foreigners also, are they still expatriates? Or we just count them as, since they are founders or something like that, they're not supposed to follow all this protocol and process you just mentioned. Then the third question is there any law on ground that guides the expatriate, that guides their management? You know, just like there's labor law that guides all Nigerians, and is there another law, or is still the normal labor law, Nigerian labor law that we do? that guides the management of expatriates? That's my question, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I got your question. Now, there's something that we must be aware of. Most expatriates that you see, most organizations that you see, you find out that they are owned by expatriates. If you check deep inside, there is somebody sitting as chairman. That is why I said earlier that when you want to write a letter for request application for CERPAC, it is written by, I said the letter has to be signed by the managing director or the chairman, who either must be a local. If you heard that, thank you so much, Pat Oster. The chairman is usually a local. Thank you so much for that. They will have a chairman. They will have a chairman who probably takes maybe 10% or 20% of revenue. It's as agreed. That's not actually our business. There is always a chairman. So the chairman is the one that will go to do the registration of the business in Nigeria and position himself as chairman. However, when it comes to the sharing, this thing, what's it called? The board sharing, you will now find out that he's saying that he has 200,000. Why the person that will serve as managing director or CEO, you see the person having a larger share. So that person as the chairman is coming in as the person that will start up the business. So he is not the one that will not carry out the processes of the documentation. Whoever that, as far as they are coming from another country to Nigeria, they are expatriates, they must go through, what's it called? They must go through the Nigerian immigration law. They must go through it. They must face with the Nigerian Ministry of Interior at all ways. So what they do is, thank you so much, Pat Oster, they must, by all means, they must liaise with somebody, they will partner with somebody and come in. They cannot just come into Nigeria to say they want to own a company. No, they will look for, they could just look for, okay, there is this Olushola, she has network, and it's usually people that has good network, people that has good names in the country. Just Olushola has a good network, has good name, has good integrity in Nigeria, and they will just chat. You just see they just chat up in your DM. Olushola, I have a bottling company that I want to set up in Nigeria, especially in Lagos. I've been told that the high consumption rate of bottle peps are increasing in Nigeria. I want to, but you know, I'm an expert, blah, blah, blah. So we'd love to partner with you. And Olushola becomes the chairman of the company, sets up the company, and you both will now agree of percentage. As soon as that is agreed upon, the business starts. So that's that. But so, and once they want to now bring in other experts, other individuals from the same country to come in, they will still need to pass through the same recruitment of expatriate. They must pass through it. And so when it comes to the law governing them, the law governing them is under Nigerian Immigration Services. Nigerian Immigration Services that manages their affairs. However, whatever they do is stipulated within the Nigerian labor law. Nigerian labor law, because they are working in Nigeria, so they are governed by Nigerian labor law. They are expected to follow suit what the ambience of the Nigerian labor law states. And that is why whenever they are found wanting, they are not being judged by just saying that they are expatriate. Nigerian labor law gives its own proceedings through NJIC or NIC, gives the proceeding, and it affects them immediately. There's no two way about it. And so usually it is best fit that we have a good practicing legal practitioner or HR professional in each of these organizations, so that they can be able to speak for both the expatriates and the locals in the country. I hope I've been able to attend to your questions, Olushola.
Okay, thank you so much. Taiwo Oyatayo, you have the floor, and that will be the last question for tonight. Any other question, quickly type it in if you must. Taiwo Oyatayo, please unmute and share your comments, your thoughts, or ask your questions, please. Okay, I'd like to assume that Taiwo unintentionally raised his hands.
I'm very sorry. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I just wanted to appreciate Mr. Oluyemi for a great So my question has been answered by the speaker. I wanted to ask the module operandi for the management of the expatriate, but I think I've gotten what I needed. Thank you so much, Mr. Oluyemi, for a job well done. And thank you so much for the speaker of tonight. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taiwo Oyatayo. I think this is a convenient time to wrap this up. Mr. Matthew Edigbe, do you have any closing remarks or thoughts?
Okay, so my closing remark will be, like I have shared earlier to my colleagues and friends in this industry. Over time, I have been privileged to witness. Over time, I've been privileged to see. I've seen people, I've seen organizations suffer for what would have just taken them going through the right process. Some organizations just want to bend corners. Some organizations entrust some of this responsibility to consultants. And HR practitioners will not even know, or the HR officer or the HR manager or head HR will not even know what is going on in the organization. And the consultant is just at the back end doing everything while the HR person does not. This is a consultant. Means consultant want to know everything you are doing for my organization. You have the right. You have the right to have the document, whether or not you are the one speaking to Nigerian Immigration Services or not. Reach out to the consultant that you want to have this document file in your own archive. You want to have it. While they are doing the job and being paid by the organization, please, by all means, make sure you have a knowledge of what happens. And like I advise Victoria, the day immigration service team would come, if you don't have the document, let's take for instance, your consultant is in Abuja. He traveled to Abuja. And immigration, like I said, for Lagos, you have it's in zone. Lagos is in the zone E. If somebody from Ipori, a team from Ipori can come, a team from Ikeja can come, any part, a team from somewhere in Festac can come. Festac, they can come to your organization. They can come. You cannot. So you don't even know where your consultant has affiliation, who your consultant has affiliation with. The Deputy Immigration Officer, Immigration Controller General Office can come from Ikeja. They could come by themselves, documents to present. Two things can happen on the spot. One, all expatriates in your organization can be arrested immediately. All of them can be arrested immediately. Immigration officers will not tell you where they are taking them to. They will take them away, and then that is when the MD or the chairman of the company will not start asking you. You don't know your job. At this point in time, you now start calling consultants. Consultant will now need to fly into the country with available flights, go to his office, pick the documents, and you start looking for where they were taken to, and then presenting these documents. And of course, they will be billed, and you know where we are. They are not going to be billed with little amount. After being billed, you have exposed your organization. So you need to, whether you are the one speaking directly with immigration services or not, ensure you have this document with you. I worked in an organization sometimes, of course, in Lagos, where it is a corporate affairs. We have it's actually a group of company, but the corporate affairs and just expatriate. I had to go and meet the general manager of corporate affairs. I was handling a particular subsidiary. I met with him. I said, sir, please give me the documents for all the expatriates in my own company. And the man was able to give it to me. He was kind enough to give it to me. So please, as practitioners, ensure you have whether you are doing attending to them or not, ensure you have this document. And also, please, when they give you this document, monitor the document, because some of these documents expires, and you must preferably 3 months. Some you can do 2 months. For CERPAC, 2 months before expiration of that CERPAC, you must have started the renewal of that document. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best as you recruit and manage expatriates in your organizations. You can reach out to me anytime. I am a learner like you. We are all learning from Mr. Oluyemi. You will not agree. We are all learning from him. So at any time you can meet me, you can come to my DM, you can come to meet me on LinkedIn. I'm ready to attend to your questions anytime, any day. Thank you so much for the opportunity once again.
Thank you so much, sir. I saw Mr. Seyi Adegbola's hands up earlier. Do you want to say something? Mr. Adegbola, quickly. Mr. Adegbola, are you there? Okay. Can anyone hear him?
Yes. He has actually said it in his comment. Well, okay.
I think Mr. Seyi's network in Canada may not be cooperating with us. I can't hear him. Mr. Seyi Adegbola, thank you for trying to reach out. The network may be unfriendly. Again, I'd like to, on behalf of the over 60 people who joined this live session and the hundreds of people who will watch this session later at their convenience, I'd like to thank you so much, Matthew Edigbe, for sharing out of your depth of knowledge, experience, and exposure. It's obvious you've handled multiple times over the situations around expatriates. And I like the fact that you are able to volunteer to share your knowledge on this. And I look forward to having you back on this platform on any other area of your expertise, like you said, so that we'll continue to learn together. Thank you so much, Matthew. Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you so much. Thank you.
Let's get some rest. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you.